Hello. It's important to recognize that perceptions of rudeness can vary significantly based on cultural norms and individual experiences. What may seem rude in one culture could be completely acceptable in another. Understanding and respecting these differences is key to fostering positive interactions and building meaningful connections across cultures. Number 10. Japan. In Japan, cultural values such as respect, politeness, and consideration for others are deeply ingrained. However, these values can manifest in ways that may be perceived as rude by individuals from different cultural backgrounds. For example, indirect communication and the emphasis on hierarchy and social harmony can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. It's important to approach these differences with an open mind and a willingness to understand the underlying cultural norms and values. Additionally, the cultural emphasis on hierarchy and social harmony can lead to behaviors such as avoiding conflict or confrontation, which might be interpreted as unfriendliness or rudeness in some contexts. Overall, it's important to approach cultural differences with an open mind and a willingness to understand the underlying values and norms of a society. Number 9. Brazil, known for its vibrant culture, lively music and dance, and stunning natural landscapes. However, some visitors may perceive certain behaviors as rude due to cultural differences. In Brazilian culture, direct and expressive communication is common, which can sometimes be misconstrued as overly aggressive or rude by those from more reserved cultures. Additionally, punctuality is often more flexible in Brazil, which can be interpreted as disrespectful in cultures that place a high value on timeliness. Despite these differences, Brazilians are generally known for their warmth, friendliness, and hospitality, and misunderstandings can often be overcome with an open-minded and respectful attitude. Number 8. Italy. It's renowned for its rich history, art, and cuisine, as well as its warm and welcoming people. However, some visitors may perceive certain behaviors as rude due to cultural differences. Italian communication often involves expressive gestures and a lively tone, which can be misunderstood as aggressive or rude by those unfamiliar with the culture. Additionally, Italian culture places a strong emphasis on relationships and personal connections, so interactions may be more informal and direct than in some other cultures. Despite these differences, Italians are generally known for their hospitality and friendliness, and most misunderstandings can be easily resolved with a respectful and open-minded attitude. Number 7. India, a country known for its diverse culture, rich history, and hospitality. However, cultural differences can sometimes lead to misunderstandings that are perceived as rudeness. In Indian culture, personal space is often less pronounced, and interactions can be more direct and animated, which might be perceived as intrusive or aggressive by those from different cultural backgrounds. Additionally, the concept of time can be more fluid in India, with punctuality being less strict in some situations, which can be seen as disrespectful in cultures that value timeliness. Despite these differences, Indians are generally warm, welcoming, and eager to share their culture with visitors, and most misunderstandings can be easily resolved with patience and understanding. Number 6. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is celebrated for its long-standing history, cultural diversity, and reputation for politeness. However, visitors may occasionally interpret certain behaviors as rude due to differences in cultural norms and customs. British communication often involves a dry sense of humor, sarcasm, and indirect language, which can be confusing or misunderstood by those from cultures that favor more direct communication styles. Additionally, the British value personal space and privacy, so behaviors that may be seen as overly familiar or intrusive in other cultures, such as asking personal questions, might be perceived as rude. Despite these differences, the British are generally polite, courteous, and welcoming, and most misunderstandings can be easily resolved with a friendly and open-minded attitude. Number 4. United States is acclaimed for its diverse cultural landscape, innovative ethos, and friendly populace. However, cultural contrasts can occasionally lead to misinterpretations that come across as impolite. American communication is often characterized by its directness and informality, which might be perceived as abrupt or tactless by individuals from more reserved cultures. Furthermore, Americans value individualism and personal space, so actions that might be deemed acceptable elsewhere, such as standing closely or using first names, could be viewed as intrusive. Despite these differences, Americans are generally welcoming and keen to engage with individuals from diverse backgrounds, and most misunderstandings can be readily addressed through open dialogue and mutual understanding. Number 3. China is known for its rich history, cultural diversity, and rapid modernization. However, cultural differences can sometimes lead to misunderstandings that are perceived as rudeness. Chinese communication often involves indirect language and a focus on harmony, which can be misunderstood as evasive or insincere by those from cultures that value more direct communication styles. Additionally, personal space and privacy are often less pronounced in China, so behaviors that might be seen as intrusive in other cultures, such as asking personal questions, may not be intended as rude. Despite these differences, the Chinese are generally warm, hospitable, and eager to share their culture with visitors, and most misunderstandings can be easily resolved with patience and understanding. Number 2. Russia is esteemed for its vast landscapes, rich history, and cultural heritage. However, cultural differences can sometimes lead to misunderstandings that are perceived as rudeness. Russian communication often involves directness and a blunt manner of speaking, which can be misinterpreted as rudeness or aggression by those from cultures that favor more indirect communication styles. Additionally, Russians value personal space and privacy, so behaviors that might be seen as overly familiar or intrusive in other cultures may not be intended as such in Russia. Despite these differences, Russians are generally warm, welcoming, and hospitable, and most misunderstandings can be easily resolved with an open-minded and respectful attitude. Number 1. France, notable for its rich history, art, and culture, as well as its reputation for politeness and sophistication. However, cultural differences can sometimes lead to misunderstandings that are perceived as rudeness. French communication often involves a direct and assertive style, which can be misinterpreted as abrupt or confrontational by those from cultures that favor more indirect communication styles. Additionally, the French place a high value on privacy and personal space, so behaviors that might be seen as overly familiar or intrusive in other cultures may not be intended as such in France. Despite these differences, the French are generally warm, welcoming, and eager to share their culture with visitors, and most misunderstandings can be easily resolved with patience and understanding. While perceptions of rudeness can vary based on cultural norms and individual experiences, it's important to approach interactions with an open mind and a willingness to understand and appreciate different cultural perspectives. By being respectful, patient, and understanding, we can bridge cultural gaps and foster meaningful connections with people from around